Hello, everyone. Hello to the people at Sector 25. I'm Khushbu Gupta. I'm Enterprise Service Quality Manager within Customer and Employee Experience Organization.
Hi, I am Karan Bajaj. I am a computer scientist with the Adobe Document Cloud team, part of Core Tech and Products. And both of us together are fondly called the K2 of Adobe Toastmasters Club.
And yes, we have a special event courtesy Adobe Toastmasters Club with a special guest today, Ankur Warikoo, who is the co-founder and CEO of Nearby.com. And not just that, there are a lot of things that I have to refer to paper for that because I can't remember it all. So he's an internet entrepreneur, an angel investor. He was part of the pre-launch team of Jabong.com, co-founder of Gadi.com, secondshadi.com, and do you know what? He did his MBA from ISB, Hyderabad. That's the same place where I did my management program from.
Very good. So that's a clear connection out there. Well, I think he's not just intelligent, he's a pretty smart fellow fitness freak. So that's a clear connection for me.
Absolutely. And you know what? This is an information for you, Rocky and Pankaj. He loves photography, okay? And if we could extend this session to night time, he could have helped us to be a DJ as well and rock the party. All right, so without much ado, I welcome Ankur Warikoo here with us to talk on how to think like an entrepreneur without being one. Welcome, Ankur.
Make it a little bit formal.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karan.
All yours.
Thank you, Karan. My name is Ankur Warikoo. I'm the founder and CEO of Nearby.com. If you don't know about Nearby.com, that's fine. You can leave. But if you do, it's an internet company. We sell a lot of local merchants which are around you, but that's not the reason why I'm here. That's not what I'm going to be talking about. I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur for now little less than 10 years, and I've seen the entire transformation of thank you. I've seen the entire transformation of what entrepreneurship has been in this country all about. So from a time when being an entrepreneur was not the coolest thing, to today when being an entrepreneur is the coolest thing. It's far better than being anything else. People know how to pronounce the word entrepreneur. They actually know what it means. People slam dunk it, I'm CEO, bitch, and so on. It's become really cool to have our own startup and so on. But what I struggle with is this fascination with entrepreneurship and startup as one. Because that's not what I believe in. At least the way that I have grown up, the way that I've shaped up my life, I've always thought of entrepreneurship as a state of mind and not a profession. Which means that sitting today, working for a great company such as this, you can think that you're not an entrepreneur because you don't own a company, you don't own equity, you're not the founder and CEO. But I'd argue that if you were to change the way that you think, you can operate such as an entrepreneur does. Because there are some ways that entrepreneurs shape themselves up, which makes them who they are. They just happen to also be working in a startup. And you guys are working in a very well-established, extremely recognized company. But it's very easy for you guys to settle into the normal of what this company expects from you, and thus think of yourself as an employee rather than an entrepreneur. So show of hands first. How many of you have ever worked in a startup? Okay, several of you, great. How many of you aspire to have your own startup at some point of time? Okay, several of you, that's fantastic. How many of you have no idea about what it is to be in a startup, nor do you care about being in one ever or starting on your own? And that's absolutely fine, we won't judge you. I won't. Show of hands. Jhoot bol rahe ho tum log. Show of hands. Okay, great. And that's absolutely fine. For those who want to start on their own, give me the biggest reason why you want to start. What's the motivation behind you wanting to start on your own at some point of time? Don't want to have a boss. Fair enough. Very strong reason. Sorry? Employment for yourself? Okay, for others, okay. No, because I know the reason I'm saying it, there was a time when becoming an entrepreneur was like, isko job nahi mili hai, to wo entrepreneur ban chuka hai, because of course that's the easiest thing to do. Meri apni dukaan hai. Okay. Sorry? Freedom and passion, heavy words. Elaborate. Freedom and passion to aaj bhi aa sakta hai. You free. Do you feel not free? Is this being recorded? Is there anyone from HR here? Are you going through an annual appraisal process right now? Okay, that's fine. So right now you're not part of a company. You're part of the Toastmasters Club. We'll be honest. We'll be absolutely free-willing. I'll try and not use the F word. But if I end up using the F word, there is no offense meant. Okay, so when you say freedom and passion, elaborate. Okay, which may not be the case right now. All right, fair enough. Anyone else? Okay, so find a solution to a problem that's stuck in your head for a long while. Fair enough. Okay. All right, so you've been through several problems, you recognize why those problems exist, and you would not want others to go through them, so you want to solve them. Okay. Can I hear them at all? No? I assume not. Anyone else? Any other? Elaborate? Are you talking about making a big impact, but that is not possible in a setup as large as this? Sure. Okay, I think I understand what you're trying to say. So have a larger sense of gratification or a stronger sense of gratification. Anyone else who has a strong point? Why startups? Sir? Okay, fair enough. That's an interesting point you make. And let me have a show of hands here. How many of you think, probabilistically, okay, just pure numbers, you're far likelier to make more money if you're an entrepreneur than if you're an employee? Show of hands. You're far likelier to make money if you are an entrepreneur than an employee, okay? How many of you think it's the other way around? You are actually far likely to make more money as an employee than as an entrepreneur, okay? All right. How many of you are clueless, don't want to answer? On ethical grounds, I will refuse to answer that question. All right, fair enough. I'll address that question because I get that a lot. And I have a very strong view on it, which may be obvious from the way I'm saying it. Okay, anyone else? Sure, so freedom and passion, yes, connotations of that. Okay, let me go to the other side. People who never want to start up or have never worked in a startup. Why so? Give me reasons. There were at least 7, 8 of them. Come on, that's okay. I remember someone from that side. Yes. It's okay. We're not judging you at all. What's your name? We'll put you in the spotlight. Sorry. Sanchit? Okay, Sanchit. Why so? Would you want to if you got a chance? Okay, which is fair. I just didn't even hear the question and just raised my hand. Don't want. Okay, that's fine, Sanchit. That's okay. Anyone who has a strong reason or even a kind of reason? Marriage? You want to get married so you won't join a startup? Okay. Oh, you won't get married if you're in a startup? How many of you think that? That was actually true 10 years back. That was actually true 10 years back because he was like, ये सब तो ठीक है, पर तुम्हारा काम क्या है? Like, ये मेरा काम है. It says, oh, वो सब तो ठीक है, पर तुम्हारा असली काम कब शुरू होगा? Yes, you had a point. Fair enough, right? So there is risk attached to it, and that's absolutely true. Standing ovation. I hope there is no HR here. Too much work, could be. Yes, job security, yeah, so there's a risk attached to it. Anyone else? Any other points? Risk of failure, pretty much the same thing. So there's risk attached, right? So that's the broader spectrum. Khushbu? Okay, so Kush is making a point that startups suffer from the lack of leadership at scale. So in a small group, 5 लोगों को motivate करना है मैं तो कुछ उखड़ता नहीं है, but if it's 2,000 people, then it's a very, very different thing, of course, completely. Sorry? Yeah. Also. Got it. Yeah, I get it. So it's a lot of flux. And for people who are not necessarily used to a lot of chaos or a lot of uncertainty, startups can be extremely unsettling, very unsettling. In fact, almost to the point of being like, this is rude. This is not professional. This is the worst way to treat a professional, which could come across like that, and that could very well seem like it's on design. Yeah, exactly. They don't even know what the fuck they're about, right? It's like, why did they even start? I raised money, shit, now I have to do something about it. And then suddenly it's like you have to raise a lot of money and get PR and yeah, totally get it. Absolutely. Okay. Yes. Funding issues, which is around the risk thing. Funding nahi aayi, layoff ho rahe hain, and so on and so forth. Sorry? Unskilled people in startups, as against skilled people here. You unskilled, uncouth person standing on stage. Sorry. Sorry? Okay, all right. So management skills, yes, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I feel slightly better about myself. Yes, so the leadership, right? So leadership is not established. How do you know that a 21-year-old who's passionate about doing something can truly build an organization and be able to lead? Absolutely, because he's sure. Yeah, totally, absolutely. Right. So there is the money aspect drives the skill level as well, and it's very hard to find good skill just purely because of passion. Because you may have the passion as an entrepreneur, and you know that you have your shit sorted, but why should someone else agree to that? Because they still have marriage to take care of and families and their own life to take care of, which is fine. All right, great. So these are fascinating responses. Very, very natural. I've heard them a lot of times. And look, here's the admission. And I don't necessarily envy the world that you guys are experiencing right now, because I actually feel somewhat sorry for all of you to an extent that you are being given or drugged, I would say, this, let's call it news, that you're a loser if you're not in a startup or thinking of one. That you're almost by design not challenging the status quo, not moving the world forward, not doing anything material if you're part of this settled, very natural, stable, cocooned environment like this, and not going out and winning it, not being the hustler, not being the one who has passion, not being the one who is absolutely driven to start something on their own, willing to give up everything that you have. your life saving, your family, your time, your friends, and be out there on social media, talking about your startup, going to tech conferences, building and coding for 20, 16 hours a day or whatnot. It's almost by design that the world is appreciating and applauding people who are doing this, and thus telling your side of the world, you're all losers. Because you're not thinking like that. You're way too comfortable. Tumhe kya pata hai? You're just getting a salary at the end of the month. You are just so comfortable with where you are, and that is the way that the world is treating most of you. And it's a hard world to fight, because at some point of time, I can argue that most of you who think that they want to start on their own or have already worked in a startup, it wasn't so much because you were passionate and completely driven by what you want to do, but just enamored by the drug and the sexiness of it. Because it's just cool to be in this environment where things are happening at the speed of thought, where you have direct access to the founder and the CEO, you speaking to investors, raising money, working in a cool office with all this funding attached, no signs and need of profitability, no sign and need of a business case, and so on. You just make things happen with your will. That's a very, very crazy world to live in. And that's why I almost came to that conclusion that this is the wrong synthesis to give to most of you, because you all are not doing anything wrong. Like, even if you don't feel this way, there's something that's nagging you, or your friend circle, or your news articles, or whatnot on your Facebook and Instagram feed that's telling you, hey, this guy at 23 raised $100 million and is worth X million dollars, and what the fuck are you doing with your life? Like, what is it that you are really getting up for every morning? Do you not feel shameless about yourself? And yes, you can argue, no, I'm working for a great company, a great product, a great team, a great temperament, and so on, but it does nag you at one point of time. And I am here not to necessarily comfort you, but to tell you that that is not true. Everyone does not need to be an entrepreneur. In fact, most people should not be an entrepreneur. The biggest reason why someone should not become an entrepreneur is it is not the safest way to make money. The likelihood, and this is mathematically proven, the likelihood that you will have a higher net worth after 40, 50 years of dedicated professional career work will be far higher than if you were an entrepreneur. Because the chances, particularly in this country right now, of you even surviving, forget raising money, even surviving is less than 10%. And then on top of that, you have to raise money. And then on top of that, you have to make it successful. And then on top of that, you have to have an exit. And then on top of that, you will eventually make enough money that you can be on the newspaper. So all the success stories that you're reading about is just survivor bias. People who are getting the stage are people who have survived. You're not getting to hear about people who are dead. People who tried and failed miserably, because they are not going to be the ones that the news is going to cover. They're not going to be the ones that people are going to be talking about. Even if people think and talk about failure, they surprisingly, and maybe not surprisingly, talk about the failure of people who are already successful. So everyone who has really made it in life will go about starting how they studied under the street light and didn't have food, and then made it to a government school, and then worked their way through an IIT, then made their way through an IIM, started the job at the low pay, and so on. It almost seems like, oh my God, this person had the worst and hardest life on earth, and yet they made it. But you're not being spoken about all the people who could not still make it and never did. And that is what you need to be very cognizant of. So while you're working on a daily basis, there is this mindset that you can adapt, which will make you think and operate like an entrepreneur. And if you do that, the only thing that you're trying to get to is, can I be in this circle of mine, not the circle of the world, but in the circle of mine, be the absolute best? Because that is what you should always strive for. Not necessarily be the top of the ladder from an entrepreneurship perspective or a startup perspective, but be the absolute best in the world that you're already part of. So the question you have to ask yourself is, how can I be the best possible employee in the setup that I am in? And I can tell you that that will require you to think like an entrepreneur. It will not be because you're thinking like a dedicated employee. And there are three things that defines the way entrepreneurs think and operate, which if you were to consider and adopt, you would perhaps make a big difference in the way you execute yourself on a daily basis in this workplace. Number one, the industrial revolution, and thus the companies that we are all working in, is centered around someone hierarchically above you trying to define what you do. So go back to school. And our education system is a messed up way of training people. Because what it did when we were all in school was not educate us or make us knowledgeable, but to train us to learn and vomit something that you've learned. So every teacher, every professor of ours was like, here's the course book, and here are the 3, 5, 10 things that you need to know, and if you know them, and if you're able to translate them on an examination day, you will be successful. You will win. You will get a high grade. You will make it in life. And the best example that I share of this is I'm a visiting faculty in a business school in Gurgaon, and the final exam of that course that I take is a very simple question I ask. List at least 3 things that you have learned in this course. List at least 3 things that you've learned in this course. That's the final exam of that 6-month course. And of the about 120 students who've taken that exam, no more than 6 of them have passed this exam. 6 students out of 120 students have passed the exam where the question was, list at least 3 things that you've learned in this course. And do you know why? Because everyone, except those 6 students, listed exactly 3 things that they learned in the course. When my question was list at least 3 things that you have learned in this course. This is a poor and a starking reflection of how we operate as employees. Because someone out there, call it the boss, the manager, the CEO, the founder, whosoever, is telling us, hey, why don't you do at least these 3 things to make yourself really awesome? And what we observe or absorb from that is I need to do only 3 things to win. And we will stop at that. Every one of us is psychologically hardwired over years of stupid, messed up education where we are just designed to operate what people expect from us, never setting the definition from our side. So each one of you, and just look within and ask yourself, how many times has it happened that your senior or even your team member or even your parents or your boyfriend or girlfriend or wife or husband, your brothers and sisters, have expected something from you, have defined that expectation, and you stopped at just delivering that expectation? Because you, in your mind, told yourself, that is success. That's all I need to do. That's as far as I need to go. And why? Because when you do that, you have everything. You get the salary you want, you get the promotion you want, you get the increment you want, you get to go for that vacation that you wanted, buy the car that you wanted, send your kids to the school that you wanted, buy that house that you wanted. Everything is happening. So why do I actually need to go beyond what has been expected from me? And guess what? Who are the ones who are successful even in a professional setup? The ones who go beyond. The ones who actually say, I am not going to be driven by someone else's definition of what success is for me. I am going to define my own definition of success. I am going to define my own boundary and my own limit and sphere of influence, and that will be as big as I can make it or as small as I'm capable of, but no one else will define that for me. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They don't let the world define their success and their failure. As employees, every single day, someone is taking a call on you and defining your success and your failure. And you are allowing that to happen. You are part of a system where you think that you cannot define your own success and failure. And until and unless you don't break away from that mindset, you're going to be the classic employee, the quintessential employee, the employee that every company would love to have. But only those who go beyond that definition of success or failure that the system has set for them will be able to challenge that system. Everyone that you would look up to, admire, think of having achieved something in life, look at them and you will very clearly see that they did not accept the world's definition of success and failure for themselves. They defined it for their own. Number two, when you are in this setup, and the reason why people who said, I don't want to do anything with startups or I don't want to do anything with starting up on my own because there is risk attached to it, this risk is a very interesting thing. This risk is almost as if we know how much there is. But here's the bit about it, risk, and thus the bit about failure. There is no scale of risk and failure. There is no way to measure risk and failure. In fact, risk and failure is something that's completely in our head. We created it, and that means we can destroy it too. It is our creation and our figment of imagination. There is no global standard of risk. There is no Richter scale of risk. But there is risk. We feel it. It's emotions. It makes us go and feel something. And that defines our actions and our emotions. When you are working at something for way too long, and you've got what you think very close to the end point of it, yet it's not working out, yet in some way you know that this is not going to happen, the world will tell you, continue doing it. Don't stop. How many of you had great grades in class 10th and took up science because that's the natural thing to do? Most of you, I would imagine. And how many of you, hand on heart, figured in 11th and 12th, and if not 11th and 12th, then definitely by the first year of engineering, that this is not really what you want to do? Hand on heart. And yet, imagine if you were to have a conversation with your parents, forget your parents, even with your own self, the first reaction will be, khatam kar lete hain. First year हो गया है, second year हो गया है, 2 ही साल और बचे हैं, खत्म कर लेते हैं, फिर कुछ और कर लेंगे. और वो और हमेशा MBA ही होता है, but कुछ कर लेंगे. And we soothe ourselves, make us feel nice about the fact कि जो हम time बिताने वाले हैं, वो आंख बंद करके, मुंह बंद करके दवाई पी लेते हैं, and we'll navigate through life. Knowing very well, I would argue, that is not what you truly wish to do. Look at how much you've lied to yourself. And then look at how people who you call successful never lie to themselves. The minute they realize that they're at a spot that doesn't make sense anymore, it doesn't matter how much time they have spent at that spot. It is sunk cost and it's over. It's over right then and there. If I were to realize that the place I am in, the project I am in, the relationship I am in, the job that I am in, the circumstance that I am in is not making sense for me anymore, it doesn't matter how much time I have spent on it. I have to cut the cord right then and there. And that requires a very different temperament, because we again have been trained to always consider the time you have spent doing something in whether you should continue doing it. And realize how messed up that thought process is. Someone's telling you, you are clearly at the wrong spot. You spent a lot of time doing it. But because you have spent a lot of time doing it and you are at the wrong spot, why don't you continue doing it so that by the end of it, you are conclusively at the wrong spot, but you'll figure your way out? That's exactly how it sounds. It sounds ridiculous, right? But that's exactly how it is. At the age of 15, we are told to make a choice between three paths in life. And it's not that we really have a choice. So if you're above a certain percentage, which in my era was about an 80%, but now it's almost like 99.9%, you take up science because that's what smart people do. Smart people don't pick up commerce, and smart people definitely don't pick up arts. They just happen to be there at some point of time if they're just drugged enough. And that's how it is. If you belong from a family of CAs, and if your dad or mom or parent or someone else or family runs into business, then you may consider commerce. And if you never got the grades, you go into arts. That's how messed up this is. And at the age of 15, it's not that this choice is irreversible. We're told this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Congratulations. And we're like, oh, shit. Because now it means you have to go to an engineering college. But no, not just any engineering college. You, of course, have to sit for the JEE, irrespective of whether you know conclusively that you're not going to make it or you don't even care two hoots about it. But you have to, and then you have to sit for the national exam, and then you have to have a certain percentage or a percentile or a rank, and you have to take up a certain stream, because even if you took up metallurgical engineering in IIT Delhi, who the fuck cares? And it is just these notions and these stereotypes and this absolute baggage that the world keeps throwing at you, and you keep doing it every day, week, month, year, knowing that's not what you should be doing, convincing yourself that at some point of time you will be able to overrule this decision of yours. And if you never get the moral courage to actually take that stand that this is it, you will always be an employee of the world. Here's the truth. When you were born, you were recruited into the world. And there was an induction program which lasted 15 years. And that induction program went through parenting and then school, and it basically trained you impeccably for the world you're going to live for the next 45 years. And someone never rose their hand and said, this induction program does not make any sense. And because no one raised their hand, it's continued to, and we are all employees of the world. And at some point of time, you got to have that moral courage to just absolutely cut it. Here's the shocking bit, and recognize it. It's become far easier for people to end relationships than to quit a job. We are happy and willing to stay with bad bosses, in bad companies, doing bad projects, working shitty hours, because it pays us at the end of a month a certain number that we think is necessary, but we are absolutely okay to cut relationships and not invest in just having a conversation. We'll break up over WhatsApp, but we'll always pick up the boss's phone. And that is a big dichotomy that you ought to think about. It may not be true for you, but what's definitely true is that there are things that you're doing in your life right now that you know conclusively are not things you should be investing in, and you're only doing this because you've been doing it for a while, and you've got to stop. Just stop. Cut it. The risk in your head is a figment of imagination, and thus the failure that will stem of it is also. The last thing. So I started physically training about 5 years back. Before that, I was about 89 kgs, and माँ के प्यार ने मुझे एक अच्छा खासा balloon बना दिया था. Because of course, for a mom, no one's ever mota, they're just healthy. And that's kept happening. I love food, I love my sweets, but it got to a point, something happened, which is not necessary right now, but I went through this absolute transformation where I figured out that I need to get physically fit. And I remember one of the first few days that I went to the gym. And for those who go to the gym sporadically, which is like the first week of Jan and then the next week of Jan next year, here is how it usually happens. So you go to the gym and the instructor's like, start with 10 push-ups. And my instructor was like, okay, you want to lose weight, we'll start with 20. So why don't you do 20 push-ups? And I started. 1, 2, 3. The instructor's looking at me. He's counting with me. 4, 5, 6. And then he steps away to attend to someone else. So he looks away from me. And I go 7, 8, 10, 12, 18, 20, done. And he asked me, are you done with the 20 push-ups? And I was like, I'm done with my 20 push-ups because I counted the number 20. And I lied to myself. I lied to my own self. Forget lying to him. I lied to my own self. And what it's reflective of is somehow, again, the 15-year induction program, we're trained to always do the right thing when someone is watching. When someone's watching is when we do the right thing. So we will not care to wear a helmet or a seatbelt if there were no traffic cops all around. We'll be like, bring it on. But the minute you see a cop is when you would wear a helmet, when you would buckle down your seatbelt, when you will slow down. If you know that there is heavy restriction on drunken driving is when you will not drink and drive. If you know that there are invigilators in the classroom, that's when you will not try to peek into someone else's sheet or try to answer if someone else is questioning you. If there is no government or society or cops, you would not do XYZ things. If there is no boss, you might always be on Facebook or Instagram, or definitely not working as hard as you think it is, because of course working hard is only about startups. Someone needs to be there for you to be doing the right thing. Let me say that again. You need supervision to do the right thing in life. That is pretty messed up. Because what this means is you've again been psychologically trained to very quickly navigate to the easy, comfortable spot. To very quickly navigate to the point of lowest effort, to the point of lowest commitment, to the point of lowest and safest. And only when someone comes in with a danda do you suddenly rise up to the occasion and become the star performer of the month. And that's not how entrepreneurs think. Because here's the guess. Entrepreneurs don't have a boss, which means they ought to be, by design, if they are successful, be their own supervisors, which means they're always doing the right thing when no one is looking. Always doing the right thing when no one is looking. That is seriously hard. It's seriously hard. Try and do this in your life without the need for everyone or anyone tracking you. Try and eat right. Try and get up on time. Try and do the right thing at work or at school or in your relationship. And you will realize it is supremely hard to do. And yet, the people who you look up to are successful, have made it in life, are people who are always truthful to their own self. They never lie. They do the right thing when no one's looking. So these three things characterize how you operate like an entrepreneur. And go back into your old world and try and ask yourself, how many of these three things do you genuinely adopt in your day-to-day life? Not sporadically, not when you feel like it, not when you just are in your best element, but every single day. Here's the fascinating truth. How many of you want to lose weight and become physically fit? Plenty of you, okay? And how many of you have tried and failed? Plenty of us, I would argue. Here's the biggest reason why we fail. It's not because we're not doing the right exercises or not eating the right way and so on and so forth. Here's the biggest experiment that you can play on your own self. Go to the gym every day at the same time and don't do anything there. Nothing. Just go to the gym every day at the same time. Just show up. Just show up. Do that for 3 weeks. Just loiter around in the gym. Make everyone else who's sweating it out in the gym look like a loser. Because you're like this cool, absolutely fresh t-shirt, smelling nice, gelled hair, just hanging around, not doing anything. Do it for 3 weeks. And I guarantee you, something will snap in you, and you will begin to become them, and it will be very natural. But here's what we end up doing. We go to the gym, almost thinking that this is the last day we will ever get at the gym, and we just go ballistic. We do everything possible. We want to lift the heaviest thing in the shortest possible time. We want to look the pumped up individual right on the first day. We want to have six-pack abs the way we want. And we will stress ourselves out so much on the first day itself that on the second day when it's 6 a.m. and your body is telling you, hey, you got to go to the gym, you're like, are you crazy? Didn't I work out as much as 7 days yesterday? So I can actually not go for 6 days and now show up the next Monday, and then the next Monday never comes. Just show up. Just show up. There is an insane level of success you get by just being disciplined. Not being the best performer always, just discipline. Just discipline. Every single day. So my plead and pledge to you is these three things cannot be that one day at the gym where you become this super motivated, charged up individual, ready to change the world and absolutely going to get at it. You've got to do it every single day and do it in a manner that you can do it every single day. And only then will you ever have a shot at thinking and becoming an entrepreneur. I will close by just one thing which you need to recognize very, very, very strongly. And because I'm at such a place, I will take the liberty of paintbrushing setups like these. How many of you have worked or been to Google? An office in Google? Anyone? Okay, you have, all right. So maybe you know what I'm talking about. How many of you have heard of the famous Google lunch? The free lunch that they give to employees? It's a famous thing. Is there free lunch here? Yeah? It's elaborate? Okay, all food is free, great. You're almost helping me. Is it very elaborate? It's like it has counters? Okay, so this will be fun. So I went to the Google Gurgaon office. It's a fancy office, nearly not as fancy as this. It's a small building, but fancy nonetheless. And the Google lunch is a very famous thing at Google. Of course, they were one of the first few people who came up with the concept of free lunch, like why should employees think about food? Let's just give them all they have. So you enter the cafeteria, and it's this beautiful, nice, spread out place. I'm imagining pretty much like yours. And there are counters. So there's Indian food, South Indian food, North Indian food, continental, healthy, Italian, juices, desserts, hajar aur cheezein, like spread out. Politician ki shaadi ho rahi hai, right? So it's just brilliant. And on one of these occasions, I'm standing in line at the Indian counter, and there are Googlers in front of me, of course. So one of them steps away from the line to check what the menu is. And he goes, fuck man, aaj fir se dal makhni hai. And I was like, oh my fucking God, where does this sense of entitlement come from? Like, what is this guy on that for 2 consecutive days in his life he's getting to have buttered lentil soup, hot, tasty, and he's cribbing about that shit? Like, where does this level of entitlement come from where you stand in front of a mirror and you go, I am fucking awesome? And I, of course, deserve to be here. And I, of course, deserve all these things. And I, of course, deserve this nice, fancy cocoon environment. And I, of course, have worked hard. And this is a trap. This is a trap. Here's the truth about all of us, me included. None of us deserve to be here. None of us have worked nearly as hard as people outside do to be here. We were just absolutely fucking lucky to be born in a family that raised us, took care of us, gave us great education and love and shelter, and thus came with it the privileges and the opportunities that we had in life to be here. Don't fuck around with yourself thinking that you are smarter and more hardworking than most people outside to be sitting in this hall. That is not true. It is not. And the minute and second and day you recognize that, you will be a better individual. The insanity of entitlement that is creeping nowadays is not funny. And with it comes this sense of comfort. Everything that you're doing in life and everything that the world is designing for you is only meant to make your life more and more comfortable. Not tell you what the realities of life are, but to almost shield you away from those. So every single day you're having the comfort of your life and you're beginning to think this is real life. So when anything remotely disturbs that equilibrium, you just completely lose it. So anyone just speaks to you in a harsher tone and you're like, oh my God, this is absolutely unacceptable. And if anyone tells you to walk in the sun for 15 minutes, you're like, oh my God, is this the company that I have to work for? And if our salary comes in 15 minutes or a day late, you're like, oh my God, are these the standards now? And if the food is slightly hotter than what it's supposed to be or colder than what it's supposed to be, we completely lose it. We don't know how to deal with real life. We don't. This is not real life. It is not. And you may think when you step out to go to the Great India Place Mall, the journey between here and there is real life because you're taking an auto rickshaw. No, it's not. Real life happens outside of the world that you even get to experience. Because here's the truth, when you open up your Facebook and your Instagram and your any other feed, you are only getting to read shit that you want to, not what you should. Because it is personalized. You have gone ahead and openly declared your interests and your sensibilities in life so that the system is throwing back at you, pumping and reinforcing the world that you belong to. They're making you believe that you are absolutely true where you are, settled, absolutely deserving. So if you love this government, people will tell you that Modi is the best person ever to have lived on earth. And if you hate the government, it will tell you that he is the worst person to have lived on earth. There is no balance and there is no consensus or conversation. It's 0 or 1. And everything is just a drug for that. So while you're fighting this battle of whether I should be an employee or an entrepreneur, recognize that the odds are against you, massively against you. Every single day, you don't have to just fight with your own temperament and your own mindset. You have to fight a world that is designed to make you fall back into the trap that you belong, which is you are awesome. And you don't need to change anything about you because, hey, the world loves you. And everything that you do is just very nicely laid out and comfortable for you. So if there's only one message that I can hope you take away from this is don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable. Don't settle into what the world wishes you to settle in. Keep challenging the boundaries of where you operate because only if you do that will you recognize a completely new you who is perhaps capable of doing a lot more than you ever emphasized, or is possibly not even in the right spot. And you'll hopefully find where you should be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ankur. That was so freaking engaging, and that's the farthest to the F word that I'll go. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
So personally, I have always loved the way Ankur is able to frame such complicated ideas into simple everyday words, like as if we're having the conversation over a cup of tea with our best friend. So thank you for that. We did have a few questions prepared, like pre-submitted questions and also some fun questions, but in the interest of time, I'll invite all of the audience here and in 25. Shoot out if you have any questions for Ankur. Rocky?
Yes, please. Where do I see myself 5 years from now? So I stopped answering that question 15 years back. It's again, it's this very nice classic interview question, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And like, who the fuck knows? Like, I have no idea where I will be. And that's genuinely helped me a lot, because what I am a fervent chaser of is just keeping my mind open to every and any opportunity that comes my door. Literally any and every opportunity. And that just allows me to have a far higher control over where I perhaps end up, but ironically with giving away control. Like, I'm not designing my life anymore. I used to be an absolute anal designer of my life. And when life didn't turn out to be that way, I just figured it's absolutely pointless. So I signed up for not a goal, but a process. And my process in life will never change, but where it leads me to, don't care.
You gave a lot of yarn on how to be an entrepreneur while you are still an employee. So if you are given the amount of money that you own or the network that you have and an option to join Adobe, will you do that?
Are you saying, can I be the CEO of Adobe? I would love to, if there is something that I can meaningfully create, not contribute, because I think I'm past that contribution phase. But if I can meaningfully create something that I am genuinely driven by, I genuinely don't care. I actually don't. I'd love to. It has to be culturally fit for me.
You can say from.
Hey, I have a question.
Sorry, can I? Why don't you ask
Yeah.
the question? I'll come back to you. Yes, Noida 25.
Yeah. The basic difference between being an entrepreneur and working in a company is that what resources, what help I get from others is entirely driven by manager. So then it becomes a mandate to speak that one word which exists in my manager, right? If I don't do that, then I risk. Then there's a mindset of I'm in a great risk. Getting at the bottom in his favorite ranking, I might get at the bottom. So there is a basic difference. So how do you handle that?
So I can only answer that from my perspective of being a founder and CEO. I don't think I will ever say no to anyone who makes sense, has the conviction to follow it through, and has a very clear plan of what he or she wishes to do, irrespective of what the final outcome will be. Now, I recognize it's easy for me to say it because it is a startup and it's only 350 people as against thousands of people that Adobe has, so there are structures built into it. But go back to anyone at the system, and I'm sure Adobe has enough examples, where people have risen way faster than most others. And you will find that if you go back to mapping their journey of how they did it, you will distinctly come across the fact that they were willing to take bets that most people were uncomfortable taking. And they were willing to actually risk their career, so on to say, for that bet. And it panned out, so it's great for them, and they are on that trajectory. It may not, but they would not have not done it because that's who they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes.
Okay, so we'll just take last two questions.
You had a question. Yep. So the question is, just for the benefit of everyone, how do you generally know beforehand whether an opportunity is good for you or not? And the answer is you don't. I don't think anyone knows beforehand whether the opportunity is good or not. What we get stuck in is recognize once the opportunity has started, the opportunity is not making sense, and yet persist with it. That's what screws us up. It's not the fact that the opportunity, so who's to say that an opportunity is good or bad? Because anything can happen. Anything that you don't even control or could foresee can happen. And within the boundaries of what you have done as in homework to figure out, theek hai, ye check hai, ye check hai, ye check hai. But after that, of course, it's like this random bet that I'm taking. I am going to be very committed to finding out whether this makes sense for me within 6 months, year, 2 years, whatever time it takes. But the day I know or have a gut feel which is very strong that this is it or this is not, I'm going to take a decision henceforth. Most of us don't take that decision. Most of us just don't. I shouldn't change too many jobs. I have just started on this. Maybe I'm just being very naive about it, very impatient about it, so on and so forth. All excuses for doing what you truly need or know that you need to do, but the world will trap you into believing that you shouldn't.
Last question.
Sorry, come again. What do you? Yeah? Or you could stay in the job and be absolutely kick-ass for 20 years. Who's to say? Says who? Says who? Says the world. Why does the world say that? Because it's convenient for them. Does any company love its employee if they keep leaving every 6 months? Of course not. Of course not. Why would anyone? Because they've invested in that. But what you have to be is true to your own self, that if I cannot find a meaningful way to contribute to what I or the company expects from me, I will just be wasting my time and making myself believe that I can still do better at it. Of course not. So I don't like the notion that following your heart means doing a lot of things. Like it's almost like, oh, if I were to love every person I met, I would have multiple wives. No one says that, right? You, at some point of time, settle. And there could be deviations and distractions and whatnot, but that doesn't mean that you don't know where your heart lies. So changing jobs is not the way for you to find where your passion is. Being very true to yourself and being absolutely objective of what you want is the first step to determining your passion. To give you an example, I'm sorry I'm taking a little longer than expected. When most of us, especially when we're freshers, try to look for a job, we either look for a company or a role. And I think that's a bad way to start because we first should look for an industry. And the reason why we should look at an industry is because industry has characteristics or personalities that perhaps match ours or don't. So if you are someone who is not comfortable with chaos, with uncertainty, with just being thrown into an ocean and being told to figure it out, you don't join a startup. And that is being very aware of who you are. But if you love the chaos of it or the uncertainty of it and you don't want to be defined, then banking is the worst industry to start in. People don't think like that. They're like, sales, HDFC Bank, great. Sales, Warikoo Industries, bad. How do you even know that you're good at sales? You have to sign up for an industry because the industry will define the problem that you're solving. And if you're not passionate about that problem, then you wouldn't be. I'll make this stupid remark. If you are not, for instance, if you are on the Photoshop team and you don't care two hoots about how images are made better or worse in the country or in the world, do you really think you will get up every day driven? No, you won't. So it doesn't matter whether you're Adobe or the second largest or the third largest imaging editor company or world or whatever software. that industry is not made for you.
Okay.
I think we're out of
Yeah,
time.
so thank you, audience. If we had more time, we could have engaged him a lot more. But I'm tempted to ask one question that I noted down for you, Ankur.
Please.
So, have you used yourself Groupon ke coupon
Yes, every week. Every week.
every week? Okay, that's great. So
I'm addicted to it.
great. Thank you once again,
Thank you so
Ankur.
much,
That was a really engaging session.
Thank you.
And so, let us hear from the audience.
Thank you.
So we come over to the formal vote of thanks section, and so I'll have to read the script. On behalf of all of us here, I would like to thank Ankur for sharing such simple yet powerful ideas in a very cool way, so that we can think out of the box in our own spaces. I loved how he shared his entrepreneurial mindset in all spheres of life. Thank you, Ankur, once again for taking time out from your very super packed schedule and agreeing to visit us. We are absolutely delighted to have you here. With that, I would invite Khushbu to come over to the stage and share a small souvenir on behalf of all of us at Adobe. Thanks, Ankur. Thank you. I would like to thank Abhishek, Shifali, Ritesh, Madhulata from Facilities team, Naveen and Ritesh and Devinder from IT Conferencing, and Ravi from Employee Communications org. Thank you, everybody. Special thanks to all members of Adobe Toastmasters Club also, especially Pankaj and Rocky for helping us from the volunteer front. Thank you. And thank you, Khushbu, for reaching out to Ankur so that he could have this session. And this is written by Khushbu, but thank you. Thank you.
And actually, what I wrote was that he owes me, actually, a lot of people owe me a lot of parties. This is one more reason, because actually, this is a small instance that happened that we were wondering after watching your videos that is it possible that Ankur joins us someday? And I said, why not? Let's try out. And so he has been actually very gracious that he answered me on LinkedIn very quickly. And that way I could talk to my team members in customer experience org that, hey, see responsiveness. So thank you very much, Ankur, for accepting the offer quickly and making this day memorable for us. Thank you.
With that, this is me, Karan Bajaj,
Khushbu Gupta,
signing off.
signing
Thank you,
off.
thank you. Signing up and signing off. Thank you, everybody.